In terms of your rookie running backs, is the biggest hurdle for them just learning the scheme?
Yeah, I mean, it's part of it's the scheme, and part of it is just, inserting yourself as the best runner. It's not just, well, am I good at the pass protection? Do I understand all the things? And that's a learning curve that can take years for guys to really master and own, which is part of it. But the other part of it is when you watch them in practice, are they hitting the holes? Do they understand the concepts? Do they understand what this play is trying to accomplish? It's more than just run like heck and get yards. There's more to it than that. There's setting up blockers. You can set up blockers to get yourself anything from a 4-yard gain can become a 20-yard gain if you just learn how to press a little bit more, set your receiver up, and then hit the hole. And all those things in college, they really don't apply as much. So there's parts of it that are that as well as the learning curve. They're being coached really well. The guys are learning as fast as they can. And then, as I've stated in here a number of times, getting opportunities in games are where the real reps occur. And until you're ready, until you get in the game, until you actually are operating in that situation, it's hard to develop and as fast as you might need to.
Small sample size, but through 6 games, the run game has been much more effective from the shotgun than from under center. I don't know if you've seen those splits, but what do you think has gone into that so far?
Well, yeah, I do think it's just a matter of, it's who knows if it's the play call versus the defense. It could be a lot of different things. It could be the situations that they're called in. You think back to one huge run in the Chicago game at the end of the half. It was a shotgun run to Debo that went for 50 or 60. That alone could take the numbers and skew them slightly. But I think it's all, we just evaluate each play in and of itself. And obviously there are trends, and if we see trends that maybe, hey, shotgun's this, why is it? And then maybe you build on that or not. You just have to, we're always looking at it, believe me, every single week, all those things. But I don't think there's anything you can put your finger on and say, this is why it's better in shotgun or this is why it's not under center.
Mike, look out there today.
Mike was out there doing, he looked normal to me. Everything looked normal.
How's Trent Williams looking?
Like Trent Williams, which is a good thing. Sorry, I mean, they both look good and I don't want to be short. They both look good. They're doing a good job. They're doing what they've always done. They look pretty good.
The challenge that your interior guys have with Chris Jones.
Yeah, it seems like week after week, and I think that's the way it is. There's always going to be, all of their players are really good players. I mean, don't look past Frank Clark, don't look past the other guys, but, they all do a good job. Chris Jones is another great challenge. We had last week 97 from Atlanta. Before that, we had the guy from the Rams, Aaron Donald. Every week there's going to be somebody that's going to be a challenge for the interior guys. So we have to work really, really hard at all the details and the things we need to do within each protection to be able to protect the quarterback and do a good job for him. So he's a load, man. He's a big, strong, physical guy that when he wants to can be an absolute game wrecker.
Is there a silver lining in that? You've had game plans where you zeroed in on one guy in the interior, so that these young guys won't. They know what to do.
Correct, exactly. There has been a plan that when you have a great edge rusher, a great inside player, there's always a thought in how you tweak things to just kind of help make sure that guy isn't. You try to, like I've said before, you're just trying to make sure that it doesn't get out of control, and you can take care of them a little bit better than say if you didn't make any adjustments at all.
Is your line still, the starting unit, is it still kind of a work in progress, or do you feel like you have the 5 guys there? Just thinking about Brunskill and Brendel. Is there an opportunity there for Brunskill to take that starting job, or how do you view it at this point?
Right now, I think our starting 5 guys, if Mike's back in the lineup and Trent's back in the lineup, I think they're doing pretty well. I don't think anybody can rest. We still have some good, talented players in behind them when Colton comes back, and then when you do have Jalen there, and obviously Dan does a really good job. They're all there and ready to go. And if at any time a guy starts to slip up or struggle a little bit, there's always the opportunity. We don't have many guys, but probably the left tackle. I think Aaron Banks is starting to put himself in that position where he's got a position, as has Mike. But I think the other guys have to keep. I don't want to say look over their shoulder, but you got to stay on point, because there are other players that can play, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're having struggles, or maybe you're banged up and hurt, and we need to play another guy a little bit more, or whatever it is, that at least we have other guys that can get in there and play.
And would you say Brendel's doing well enough to hold
all the guys right now are all 5 that are in. There's the starters are starters because they're doing well enough to be the starters. We're not gifting a position right now to anybody, but definitely they need to keep grinding and keep working.
Like 3 games with considerable amount of rushing yards, and then 3 games that were like less than 100. And sometimes that's circumstance because of how many plays you get to run. But where do you see the evolution of the running game at this point? What do you need to do better, you think?
I think the games that I think it's kind of a reflection of the consistency of how we play. It really is. I think the one under 100 was the Rams game, which is kind of the way the game went, the drives. If I remember correctly, that was a little bit different than the other two where we were low. It's just consistency in our play. It's kind of probably why we're 3-3. It's just not consistent week in and week out. And I can speak from the offensive line perspective. We're not executing consistently at a high enough level to run the ball enough times. And then, we've had games where we haven't converted on third down. There's a lot of other reasons, but at the end of the day, we've got to do a better job. The tight ends, the fullback, the offensive line, everybody as a unit pulling together to make sure that we have more consistency in the running game.
How do you account for, it seems like Justin Reed's maybe the fastest safety in the NFL. How do you account for, especially outside zones, somebody that can cut down angles really quick?
Well, whatever the responsibility is of the given play, if the receiver's responsible for them, however we account for that player, we have to put our guys in position they can get him blocked. So whatever that entails, splits, play calls, different things like that. Obviously, he's a talented player and will make plays no matter what you do. And so it's trying to understand every part of the defense and where the challenges lie and how we can put ourselves in a position to best block the guys we need to block.
We saw Dan Brunskill back in a tackle for the first time since 2019. What's been behind that thought process over the past several years to have him at guard and not really experiment anymore with him at tackle?
Well, I think that when he came here in 2019, if I remember correctly, both Joe got hurt in the Cincinnati game, McGlinchey got hurt a little bit after that, so we had School and Brunskill were basically our backup tackles at that point, if I remember correctly. My memory's is fading, but I think those two guys. And so when we had them both out, they were the next man up. Dan has had tackle and guard ability. Center was a reach for him. When we put him in at center, that's been a stretch for him, and he developed. Dan can play every position if you give him enough time to figure it out. But his body type, his athleticism is more suited to guard than to tackle. So right now, when you think about it, if tackle 1 is Trent, tackle 2 is Mike, tackle 3 is Colton, tackle 4 is Jalen Moore, tackle 5 is Dan Brunskill, right? So you're talking about our 5th tackle on the roster. Then you get down to, and you start talking about the 6th guy. You're talking about guys that are, Leroy Watson, who's on the practice squad, and guys like that. So basically, we're playing with the guys that, if you were listing up from how we had them ranked, it'd be their 4th and 5th tackle. So Dan was next guy up. You're lucky to have 4. We're lucky to have 5 or 6 guys that can literally slide out and do it. You also have Blake Hance, who's had some substantial time at tackle with Cleveland, and then he played some for us in tackle. He spelled Mike for the first couple plays when Mike came out, and then we went with Dan and Spencer the rest of the game.
Some coaches and players have talked about reviewing the Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs, and it's not a great thing to do. Has it been more clinical in watching that, or do people actually comment like, crap, that play sucks?
No, there's a play or two, like, you get the ball back at the end of the game and you see certain plays, but there's always plays in every game when you look back. Whenever you go back and watch a game of yourself, we'll go back and look at, I think we play the Rams next week, and I think we'll go back and look at the first game. You look at all the games. You go back at that championship game and your stomach sinks when you think about, gosh, here was this opportunity. It happens all the time when you watch yourself against a previous opponent. It doesn't matter what the year, what the game, everything else. Obviously, the Super Bowl is a bigger stage and a pretty big game, but I think that definitely it happens all the time. But most of it now is you get in the grind of these seasons and the hours you spend. There's time for emotion, but there's mostly time for, let's just get the work done. Let's see what we have to do. How are we best going to attack this team? Finding clips of film that can help your guys play a little bit better. Watching how Chris Jones did things against us then, or there things that we can take from that to help us, or just all sorts of things you're trying to pile together to piece something together for your guys to help them play better, help the offense to play better.
Inconsistencies. Is there anything that you can put your finger on as far as what's causing the inconsistencies? Is it just across the board, small mistakes here and there?
Yep, it's inconsistent in the inconsistencies. There's a lot of different things. No, there's just a lot. You can put your finger. It's every given play, right? For example, on a certain play, it could be the most basic thing. If Aaron Banks towards the end of the game does one thing a little bit different on a linebacker, the play breaks out the backside and it might be a 25-yard run. Now all of a sudden you have 100 yards in the game instead of 80 or whatever. I don't even know what the numbers were for the game, right? There's another run in the game where we miss a down block, and if we get the one down block, right? It's as always, when you don't have success, it's usually just a bunch of little things that kind of add up, and then pretty soon the sum of the whole is just not good enough. Some of the parts isn't good enough. And that's kind of what happens when you're not having success. It's one guy here, it's one guy there. It's not this overriding thing of, we're just not good enough. It's just a little bit here and there off. It's the other team playing well. It's us not playing as well or whatever each play. But each play kind of stands alone.
maintain faith and confidence that you will get rid of, one little thing each week?
We just keep working. That's the part of the NFL season that I think is, I love the season. I think the season's the greatest time because you have you get to put your stuff out there on tape and it's live and it's real. And when we're doing OTAs and we're doing training camp against each other, when it's preseason, it's pretend. Now it's real. It's under the scrutiny, the pressure of the whole world seeing what you're doing on a daily basis, people circling you, pointing you out, and now how are you going to develop in these pressure situations? And that's how you really find out what you're made of and what kind of football player and what kind of football team you have. So I don't worry about it. I actually welcome it because that's when you have a chance to get better. That's when you actually get to get a guy and say, hey, listen, dude, this is what we need to do to improve. And now we can really work on these things. And if the guy has the ability and the guy has the grit and the grind, he's going to get it done, right? That's part of the process. And then you find out we're 3-3 right now, 11 games left, right? I think they're going to let us play 11 more. So we get 11 more games here. And when we get those games, now we're going to get to see what we're made of. And that's the challenge every year. And every year's different. It doesn't matter if I coached Joe Staley in 2008, 2009, 2015, and I was back here again in 2019. Right? 3 different times, 4 different seasons in my career, and every season was a different challenge, a different set of things that came up with him that put us in a situation where, how to coach that guy. Every guy's the same way. I've coached Trent Williams for so many years, but some practices, it's like, hey, Trent, we're working on this today. This seems to be something that's creeping into your game. Or Spencer Burford, you made great progress here. Let's make sure that doesn't go back. So do I worry? It's the season. It's what happens. And then all of a sudden, these moving parts, you start throwing different guys in there. You're like, okay, now I got a new set of problems or situations to work with. But that's what makes it fun. It's why it's not just going and punching the clock every day and flipping burgers. You're working with people. You're operating with guys that are human beings that are laid on the line, that are competing at a high level, and you got an opportunity to help them to build together as a team, to grow as a team, to watch our offense excel and do better every single week. That's the challenge. The hard part is, people, when you're having inconsistencies, well, which one are we? Are we good? Are we bad? What are we? And it's like, no, just keep working, and we'll see what we are. At the end, that's what really matters. And every week you get a test to see where you stand, to see where you are. And that's awesome, right? You get 6 days to work as hard as you can. On the 7th day, boom, how'd you do? You lost. Wasn't good enough, man. We got to come back the next week, pick ourselves up, get to freaking work, and let's go see what we can do. So that's what I love about this thing. So no, not at all. And regardless of who it is, it's sometimes even more fun when you have the challenge of all of a sudden I'm looking on the sideline and Nick Zakel's standing next to me. I'm like, okay, Nick, whoever gets hurt, you're going in, and whatever happens. We'll shuffle the deck and see how it goes, and let's go try and win this game in the fourth quarter. And that's what makes it kind of cool.
How are defenses more prepared against Debo this year, and what are you seeing from him in terms of his hunger to kind of get moving again in the run game?
Well, I think it's like with when a lot of runs are going, I think that there's more opportunities to insert Debo when we've had limited opportunities, whether it be we've had some opportunities where we didn't convert on 3rd down. I'm not blaming anything on that. We got to do a better job running the ball in the game. There's other things. This past week there just weren't the opportunities. So all of a sudden there just isn't the ops. Then you get one and it doesn't go. You get another one, it goes. So it's a hit or miss thing with him right now. I don't think it's that they're defending Debo any differently. We're putting him in very similar situations, and there's opportunities there. Some have been missed by him. There's specific games I can think of. Others have been we haven't executed properly for him.
Thanks, Coach. The 2012 team is coming in. Frank Gore was part of that group. Obviously, one of the best running backs that the Niners have had. What is it about his game that was so special?
I was fortunate enough to be with Frank in 2008 and 2009, and I was there a game against Seattle in Candlestick where Frank had 2, a 75 and an 80-yard run, 2 really big runs in that game, which was really cool to watch. Frank had some of the best vision. You'd run power, and Frank was a great power runner, and there might be literally the width of this podium of a hole. And Frank had the patience to wait on that thing, and then all of a sudden he'd press it, and it would open, and he'd hit it. Most guys would say that's not a hole. Frank could see it and be able to hit that hole and go. Frank's vision, and then Frank was just tenacious about running the football. He was not going to be denied. He had great vision. He had great stamina. He had great power. His will to win and be successful. Frank was just awesome. So it's all the things combined in here. Plus, I just thought it was a tremendous vision thing is what I saw and what I see in every really good back.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. Thanks.